It's time again for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.
Hi, I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And we're the Insiders. Chuck, there's a very important election coming up here in April for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And it's a race that hasn't gotten as much attention as previous Supreme Court races, but of course it's absolutely crucial to the future of government in Wisconsin. How are you sizing up the race at this point?
Well, I really was kind of, I had two schools of thought in my head, but I really felt this is the way it would go. Republicans can't get the majority with this race. As we've talked about multiple times, it used to be that these spring small turnout elections relative to governor or president were benefiting Republicans, and it was a more conservative electorate. That has flipped on a dime, and it is totally the other way, so that we've had a couple of races with 10, 11% margins for the progressive, now ID'd as Democratic candidate versus the Republican. So what's happening now is that is the way it goes, and I think Republicans realize they can't win this race. In fact, I would predict that Chris Taylor, the progressive candidate against Lazar, will probably get even more than the 11% because the Republicans they really look lackluster here. They don't look like they're even putting in an effort. And so I think that's what's going to happen is that, sure, there's been some money spent, and there will be more money spent as we get closer to the election. I think this one is definitely going to go for Chris Taylor. And there are just so many reasons. There's the fundamentals there, that electorate is more progressive and democratic. But also, in addition to that, at a time when government, Scott talks about government, maybe too big sometimes. Well, one thing where people are really upset about government right now is how they're handling the immigration issue, shooting 2 American citizens and killing them. That is the kind of thing that people recoil at. And guess what? They do realize that one of the few places we have to go to hold government back on those issues is the courts. And so I think that combined with what we already have out there happening in these spring elections, I think it's going to be a blowout that will be, I believe, more than 11% for Chris Taylor. And I would be willing to bet somebody 3-1 odds on this. And I think it's going to happen. It's going to be a very big progressive turnout, a very big progressive win.
Well, what's interesting to me about this is that I think pundits from both sides and the folks who are involved in a lot of these races have sort of said this race is over. Taylor's going to win this thing. And then you get the first results from the Marquette poll, and it's like, oh, actually, most people don't know the candidates. Most people haven't decided who they're voting for, and it's single-digit difference between the two candidates. I think people were sort of startled by that. We all watch this stuff very, very intensely. We know the candidates. I mean, Maria Lazar is a neighbor. I know these people, and we think we've already seen the future, and the voters are like, oh, there's a race for Supreme Court coming up, really? So, I mean, I think it's just beginning to go here. I think that Taylor clearly has more money. She's going to outspend Lazar 5-6-1, something crazy like that, as she has so far. But I think she's playing her cards. I just don't agree with the way she's playing her cards, I guess, in this race. Her first one, she said, affordability is the top issue. Vote for me, I'll lower grocery prices, which is a fascinating Supreme Court case argument there. Then her second one was a victim rights one, where very compelling ad, very compassionate, with Taylor and another woman telling a story about how Chris Taylor really cared when this woman was a victim of a crime. There's a reason they're running that ad. They are inoculating against the fact that Chris Taylor has, when she was a legislator, voted against the Victims' Rights Amendment to the Wisconsin Constitution that was very popular and people voted for overwhelmingly. So they have the money to go out and try to do this inoculation, but they are kind of showing where they know that the candidate is vulnerable. I think to some extent, if we don't have $110 million in Elon Musk in this race, you might be able to go back to having a race where there was an argument about where people stand on things like victims' rights, or where, are they pro law enforcement, or are they trying to hold law enforcement back? Well, I think that's the more legitimate argument than grocery prices for a Supreme Court race, and we just might actually get one like that.
I think that what's going on, other things that she's brought up is the 1849 abortion law and things like that. And that has been a winning ticket. What's happened is that there's just no, I think Scott would agree with this. What we realized in the legislature is, yes, you can spend a year doing things and educating the public, but when it comes down to the last few months, all you're doing is getting your message out. There's no really educating the public. You're getting your message out about where you are on the issues that people already care about. And like you say, Chris Taylor is going to have that message amplified because she will have much more money. And the other thing, the issues that she cares about and that people in this particular electorate in the spring care about are much more on her side, such as abortion rights and other issues where the court has an impact on the day-to-day lives. I think you take that, these races, sadly, but they're nationalized. I mean, Elon Musk put 110 million. They still lost by 11 points in that Supreme Court election last spring. So what's going to happen here is Chris Taylor is going to be able to get traction because people look at American citizens being murdered, and they say, who could stop this? Who could do something before the police were there? The only place that they could go for redress after the fact, sadly, is with the court. And that's an argument that's going to rest heavily on the Democratic side. I wouldn't be surprised to see an ad like that before it's all over. But you know what? I just think that there's no getting around. The spring races have become the race where Democrats have a greater opportunity because the electorate votes their way. And I think that's going to be the race. I think Chris Taylor might be able to win. There's a ceiling here at some point, but she might be able to win by 15%, which would be crazy, unusual in Wisconsin politics for the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it'd be kind of crazy for the person who was the most liberal member of the legislature to win by that kind of margin in a statewide race, even where one is tilted towards the Democrats. I do think that my great fear here is that people have written this race off, and on election night, the Republicans will go, oh, no, this was close, and we didn't put in the resources that could have gotten this seat done, that could have gotten us back to a more reasonable balance on the Supreme Court, because we're about to practically give it away, right? If we lose this race. So I would caution my colleagues in the Republican camp. This is more winnable than some of the other ones that we've been in.
I agree with Scott. I hope you spend a lot of money this spring because you can't win and you won't have it for the fall.
All right.
Next time.
We'll argue about this some more.
Sure.
You've been listening to The Insider with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen. Sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.